We pick up Act 2, Scene 3 at line 130, just after a drunken Cassio has exited to mount the watch. The public celebrations in honour of the defeat of the Turkish fleet and Othello and Desdemona's marriage are in full flow, and Iago has been plying a reluctant Cassio with alcohol. He knows that Cassio can't handle his drink very well and has a very short temper, a combination which he hopes will spark a brawl when Roderigo deliberately provokes him. Sure enough, there is a cry of "Help, help!" within, followed almost immediately by the entrance of Cassio pursuing Roderigo. Cassio is apoplectic, cursing Roderigo for a rogue and a rascal. Roderigo has clearly given Cassio some unwelcome advice on how to do his job, and Cassio is outraged at his cheek. "A knave teach me my duty? I'll beat the knave into a twig and bottle." A twig and bottle was one covered with wickerwork, and Cassio is perhaps alluding here to the woven pattern resembling the slashes he intends his sword to make across his body. Roderigo proceeds to bait him further, and so Cassio, as Iago knew he would, strikes him. Montano tries to intervene by grabbing hold of Cassio's arm while imploring him, "Nay, good lieutenant, I pray you, sir, hold your hand." Cassio, however, is too drunk and too angry to listen, and threatens to strike Montano across the head if he doesn't let go. "Let me go, sir, or I'll knock you o'er the mazzard." Montano's accusation that Cassio is drunk is enough to start a fight between them, and Iago makes the most of the opportunity to order Roderigo to sneak out and wake everyone up, before pretending to try to break up the scuffle between the two men himself. "Nay, good lieutenant, God's will, gentlemen, help, ho! Lieutenant, sir! Montano, sir! Help, masters, here's a goodly watch indeed." Meanwhile, a bell begins to ring as Roderigo attempts to rouse the town. Othello enters accompanied by gentlemen with weapons. Even his authoritative command, "Hold for your lives," is not enough to bring the fight to a complete halt, as Iago, playing up to his role of honest Iago and putting on a mask of sanctimony, chimes in with his own disapproving plea for the men to stop. "Hold, ho, lieutenant, sir! Montano, gentlemen, have you forgot all place of sense and duty? Hold! The general speaks to you. Hold, for shame!" Othello is livid at the pair's behaviour, likening it to that of the heathen, i.e. non-Christian Turks, who had to be prevented by heaven from slaughtering their own soldiers. He reminds them to act like the Christians they are. "For Christian shame, put by this barbarous brawl." He warns them that the next person to use their sword to satisfy their own anger puts little value on their own life, as he threatens them with death. "He that stirs next to carve for his own rage holds his soul light. He dies upon his motion." After commanding them to silence the bell that is disturbing the island's usual peaceful state, he turns, ironically, to Iago, who has changed his expression to show that he now looks distraught, to get a clear and honest account of what has happened. "Honest Iago, that looks dead with grieving, speak. Who began this? On thy love I charge thee." Iago disingenuously explains that it is beyond his comprehension. One minute the men were getting along like a house on fire, the next they were going at it hammer and tongs, swords out and tilting one at other's breasts in opposition bloody. He has absolutely no idea what started such a senseless argument. I cannot speak any beginning to this peevish odds, and furthermore would rather that he had lost both his legs in action glorious, or on the battlefield, than that they had brought me to a part of it. Othello turns first to Cassio, demanding that he explain himself, who, with head hanging in shame, can only mutter, "I pray you pardon me, I cannot speak." He then takes Montano to task, reprimanding him for squandering his good reputation as a law-abiding, sensible young man who is well thought of amongst the great and good of Cyprus. Worthy Montano, you were wont to be civil. The gravity and stillness of your youth the world hath noted, and your name is great in mouths of wisest censure. What's the matter that you unlace your reputation thus, and spend your rich opinion for the name of a night brawler? Give me answer to it. Montano merely responds by saying that he is too severely injured to talk, but that your officer Iago can inform you, while I spare speech, which something now offends me, of all that I do know. He has absolutely no idea what he has said or done that is wrong, unless self-defence is now considered a crime. Nor know I aught by me that's said or done amiss this night, unless self-charity be sometimes a vice, and to defend ourselves it be a sin when violence assails us. Othello's patience is holding on by a mere thread, as he admits that his anger is beginning to take over his reason to influence his judgment. Now by heaven my blood begins my safer guides to rule, and passion having my best judgment collied, essays to lead the way. He is so mad that if he is to merely raise his arm, the best of you shall sink in my rebuke. In other words, they will be flat on the floor. This is the first time that we've seen Othello be anything but composed and dignified, even when he was being goaded by Brabantio's vicious attacks on his character, and is an indication of a weakness that Iago will go on to exploit. He demands to know how this foul rout began, who set it on, and he that is approved in this offence, though he had twinned with me both at birth, shall lose me. It is beyond his comprehension that they should have conducted a private and domestic quarrel, not only in a garrisoned town that has been on the brink of war, where the people's hearts are brimful of fear, but also in the very guard-room which is supposed to be keeping them all safe. Montano warns Iago against misplaced loyalty that might lead to a biased report of what happened. Iago claims that I had rather have this tongue cut from my mouth than it should do offence to Michael Cassio. Yet I persuade myself to speak the truth shall nothing wrong him. The beauty of Iago's plotting is, of course, that because he has so skillfully manipulated everyone around him so that he hasn't got his own hands dirty, he's able to give a reasonably accurate version of what happened, which looks very bad for Cassio indeed. He reports that Cassio came into the guard-room in pursuit of an unidentified fellow crying out for help with determined sword to execute upon him, while Montano stepped in to try to break it up. He explains that he himself went after the crying fellow, as he was concerned that all the noise he was making would wake the town. It was only when he returned that he heard the clink and fall of swords, and Cassio high in oath, which till tonight I ne'er might say before. He describes discovering them close together at blow and thrust, even as again they were when you yourself did part them. He then puts in a good word for Cassio, downplaying his conduct by placing the blame squarely at the door of the fleeing man for having provoked him, safe in the knowledge that this will be unsuccessful, while banking on the fact that it will reassure Othello of his integrity, while making Cassio believe that he has his best interests at heart. Yet surely Cassio, I believe, received from him that fled some strange indignity which patience could not pass. As intended, his words cement Othello's opinion of him as a man of honesty and compassion, who is unwilling to drop his comrade in it, while simultaneously convincing him that Cassio's crimes are even worse than have been reported. I know, Iago, thy honesty and love doth mince this matter, making it light to Cassio. Cassio, I love thee, but never more be officer of mine. Note how Othello, who affectionately addressed Cassio by his given name of Michael at the beginning of the scene, has reverted to his surname, indicating that there is now an impassable gulf between them. Desdemona enters, which makes Othello even angrier towards Cassio as the episode has disturbed her from her bed. Look if my gentle love be not raised up. I'll make thee an example. He tells her that all is well, and indicates to Montano that he will personally see to his wounds. He exits, telling Iago to look with care about the town and silence those whom this vile brawl distracted, while reassuring Desdemona that this is all normal in the military. Come, Desdemona, 'tis the soldier's life to have their balmy slumbers waked with strife. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.